Her zombie takeout was a neat, discreet little cleft, but as soon as the animal within was aroused by my caress, it would stir. What's up? Welcome to episode 310 of Zombie Takeout. The B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted. This is from Danny Meeks and Bodo Winter, both answering the question we asked at the end of I almost said last week, but end of the last episode. Danny said, I heard y'all asking how people found out about you guys. I searched my podcast app, Podcast Addict, for cult movies long ago, and you guys turned up in the results. I've been a listener ever since.
Nice.
We actually got a listener from searching cult movies. That's nice.
That is cool. Yeah.
And a little bit more predictably from Bodo, he left us a voicemail.
I used to listen to a zombie podcast called We're Alive, and after that ran its course, I was feeling for zombie stuff. And so I tried some horror shows and horror movie podcasts, and they were pretty much vacuum cleaner shows, which means they both sucked and blowed. So I decided to try some more, and then I fell on you guys, and I guess it happened to be one of those very rare times where you actually did horror. But there was like 2 or 3 shows in a row that were horror, and kind of got me hooked. So when you did like the Mickey Mouse Club or whatever you guys did, I can't remember all the great shows that you guys have done. I was hooked, and it didn't matter to me that you weren't talking strictly horror, even though I am a nut or a horror or nut. Yeah, a horror nut. Anyway, keep up the great work. Keep me awake at night, and appreciate the excellent job you guys do. Have a great day. Bye.
I am really sorry we don't do horror more often.
Yeah. We should. And the vacuum cleaner shows analogy. We need to apply that to movies. We need to borrow that phrase.
Well, it was a little late after 50 Shades. I think we could.
There will be other vacuum cleaner movies.
Yeah.
All right, so on to this week's movie, which is from 1992, Bitter Moon, suggested by Bodo, concluding our trilogy of BDSM movies.
Yes.
Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Milk. It does a body good, sometimes even 2 bodies.
And also brought to you by editors. You may be Roman Polanski, but for fuck's sake, you still need an editor. Oh, I guess it's my turn, huh?
Yeah.
I've done this before, you know. All right, so we begin on a cruise with, an old married couple, Hugh Grant.
Well, not that old.
Hugh Grant, who I actually looked up, was about 30 years old by the time this movie had been done, but doesn't look a day over 12.
No, never does. Still doesn't, probably.
Like, wait, they're acting like an old married couple, and he looks like he's barely legal to drink.
Yeah.
But, so they are an old married couple by technicality.
And it's Hugh Grant and Kristen Scott Thomas, who I can't now not think of Under the Cherry Moon when I see her.
Right. She was so underused in this, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Another discussion. They run into, a very bizarre couple.
Mm-hmm.
They first run into the wife of this couple.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm still not all that certain. Like, they were in the ladies' room together, was it? Well,
apparently, at least the impression I got was she was very, very drunk and ill, and she needed to be taken care of.
Right. And, so he winds up getting smitten by this this woman who, I don't know, she seems kind of out there. Yeah. To say the least. I don't know. It's hard to describe because if you just met a person like this in real life, I mean, you would be quite confused.
Yes.
I mean, she's just this free spirit dancing around, but you could tell she's just fucking miserable.
Yeah.
And yet she's still very seductive. And so, of course, Hugh Grant is attracted to her.
Mm.
But so crazily attracted to her that he's pretty much just putting his wife aside.
Yeah. Like, immediately.
Yeah, and the deal becomes that the husband is kind of, in his own way, seducing Hugh Grant too, by telling his story to him.
And the husband is played by Peter Coyote, who is kind of professionally weird.
Yeah.
He does a lot of these kind of roles, I mean.
He's pretty much, I mean, he's the ultimate voiceover guy.
Yeah.
So most of the times when you're talking, narrative flashback, you're like, oh, please give me a fucking break.
Oh, and just to call out the fourth of the actors, Emmanuelle Seigner plays Peter Coyote's wife.
Yeah, and I mean, I kept having to look at that wasn't Brooke Shields. She's pretty much a shorter version of young Shields.
They do look a bit alike, yeah.
At this point, which was just, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
But, normally, though, for a narration, that's just such a terrible trope, the whole, it's almost comedic now. The film noir, right. I was feeling like this now, so, it's kind of forgivable to have Peter Coyote doing it, though.
Yeah. Probably one of the few actors who can pull it off, along with, like, Jonathan Pryce and Clancy Brown. Maybe but James Earl Jones.
But you're still using this ridiculous, outmoded means of telling a story.
Right.
And the whole way I was trying to think, did they really need to do this, or could they have just played it chronologically straight, But anyway, he tells him their whole story. He was a writer and who had to write in France, chasing the movable feast that's 70 years gone at this point.
Yeah.
And trying to visit all the ghosts of France, and he really just turns into they just pretty much fall into downright hedonism more than anything else in the end. And it's not really conducive to writing.
Many have tried, few have pulled it off.
I mean, it gives you a lot to write about, but you still need to write it.
Well, to quote Hemingway, write sober, edit drunk. You have to be sober for part of that process.
Yeah.
Or no, write drunk, edit sober.
Other way around.
Other way around, yes. Write drunk, edit sober, yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty much how I did it. And sometimes it would be the next day like, what the fuck was I thinking?
I've written some music that way, and yeah, I had a similar reaction.
And sometimes like, this is good. And sometimes like, oh, no, this is going right in the garbage. But anyway, so he tells him this whole long, drawn-out story with so many details that a lot of it's for titillation's sake, of course. And he's, he'd been married to Emmanuelle Seeger for a couple of years at this point, Roman Polanski.
Okay. That's why she's been in a couple of his movies. All right.
I think she's been in all of them. I think this is
okay. I've only noticed a couple of them.
This is like the Resident Evil couple.
Yeah.
Well,
except Mila Jovovich actually does a good job in those roles.
Does she?
Well, the quality of the movies we've talked about, but she's good in the role. But anyway, continue.
So he's just stringing him along to get to this point, and
there was a point?
Yeah, I know. What was the plan in the end, if you think about how everything unfolded? Was he supposed to have seduced his wife? I mean, he knew her very well at this point, that she wouldn't have fallen for stuffy Hugh Grant. So, in the end, I mean, is what happened what he was planning all along? The hilarity that ensued?
Yeah. But then why would he need an audience?
Well, I think it was more just about his addiction to storytelling.
Okay. Fair point. Yeah.
The
hilarity ensues, by the way.
Yeah, hilarity more like a lot of huh?
Yeah.
I think the question is, and this is really jumping towards the end,
Mhm.
did he get published? Because how the fuck did they afford to go on this cruise?
That's a good point. Yeah. For a failed writer and a waitress and a former waitress who didn't seem to have a job, they
Right.
had a lot of money to do stuff.
And he's putting stuff on his tab, and I guess
Yeah.
he probably had no intention of paying that tab, is the only thing I can think of.
Right. Now, the big problem with this movie is that it is very much a product of its time. It's from that weird period in the early 90s where it was very transitional from the 80s and it was kind of still kind of awkward and stilted.
I felt it was very derivative. I mean,
Yeah.
9.5 weeks was like 5 years before this.
Yeah.
Or 6 years before this. So, I mean, and they even fucking took one of the soundtrack songs, Safe to Love by Brian
Slave to Love,
Ferry. Yeah. Slave to Love, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I heard that, I'm like, really? Like, you're taking the movie that you're kind of ripping off
And aside from the sexual stuff, the relationship between Oscar and Mimi, Peter Coyote and Manuel Sanier's characters, was very much a typical love story up until he tried to end it. Then it got weird.
Well, yeah. I mean, what he did is kind of, the dick move of just, I'm going to be a bastard and chase her off. But usually you give up after a while and just, put it to rest. But, I mean, I guess he got a kick out of it.
Yeah, well, he said everyone's a sadist. So it gave him a chance to, exercise that side of himself. Because he was kind of, the submissive one for a lot of the relationship, in the sense that he was chasing her, and then he got control. She was chasing him, and he kind of got power drunk.
Right. I mean, and by the way, nothing makes the skin crawl more than a Roman Polanski movie in the line, I fell in love with her childlike naivete.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
I almost did a John Oliver and just took the headphones off and jumped out of my chair and just said, no. And then took a Silkwood shower.
Wow.
Too soon, Roman.
Yeah.
I know it was like 40 years ago, but still too soon.
Well, this was still like 20-something years ago. 25 years ago.
Good point.
One thing I do have to give it credit, though. Peter Coyote plays a character in a wheelchair. And in case we have newer listeners, I'm in a wheelchair. I have to mention that every couple of years.
About your feelings about his performance here.
Nailed it.
Yeah?
In that respect, he nailed it. Because I'm very critical.
Yeah.
His legs didn't move at all.
Right.
And they really looked underdeveloped. I'm thinking they just used larger pants, like oversized pants.
Right.
But, the positions they were in, the stillness, it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, to my untrained eye, it seemed good too.
Mm-hmm. And there's always a dead giveaway with able-bodied actors in wheelchairs. Somewhere they move or it's just a little too developed, whatever. But I don't know if it was a special effect or just oversized pants, but they looked perfect.
If only they'd used some of those effects at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm. Although when he asks Nigel, Hugh Grant's character, to help him up a step, they did it kind of in a weird way.
Oh, yeah.
He had him grab the rims on the wheel and pull him up.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Well, I think there was, kind of a seductive,
he had to get closer, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of more of a cradle kind of look to the two of them.
It was part of the whole endgame, which, at the time I didn't know what the endgame was.
Maybe that was the plan all along, was for him to seduce Nigel. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fiona ended up, other way around. Mimi ended up seducing Fiona.
Right. The problem is he took so long delivering this film, and then the end is just so rushed.
Yeah.
So weird. Like, 2 hours just seemed like And then the last, 12 minutes was like, oh yeah, and then this happened, this
Right.
happened, this happened.
That
You're just
whole
like, wait,
New Year's
what?
Eve party scene was just incredibly chaotic.
Yeah.
And it just kind of surreally so.
Mm-hmm.
But just rolling it back to the beginning, I talked about special effects. The shot of Mimi on the bus looked ridiculous. She was basically just standing in front of a projector. I don't even think there was a pane of glass behind her.
It was a little weird, a little over-stylized, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. And he referred to F. Scott Fitzgerald as Scott Fitzgerald, even though he'd called Hemingway and Miller by their last names. Now, as far as I know, F. Scott Fitzgerald's last name was just Fitzgerald. I've always assumed that Scott was his middle name.
The two of us aren't really on speaking terms.
Mm-hmm. Seemed odd when he said Hemingway, Miller, and Scott Fitzgerald. But getting to the first moment in this movie where it got really kind of ridiculous, he sees her on this bus.
Right.
And, he helps her out, gives her his ticket, he gets thrown off the bus. And then he pretty much stalks Paris to find her.
Yeah.
This random woman he met on a bus at one point, or he didn't even meet, he saw. He walks all over Paris looking for her and successfully finds her.
Small little city like Paris.
Mm-hmm. It was also weird to see someone smoking in a restaurant. Even though, 12, 15 years ago, I was doing that.
I was trying to... Really? Even as recent as that? 12, 15 years ago?
It was, I think, 2006 when it was banned in Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
So, in 2005, actually. 12 years ago, I was smoking in a restaurant.
Anytime I'm in Indiana and they're still, wait,
Mm-hmm.
what?
He lights up a cigarette at a table in a restaurant, and it just seemed odd. Not as odd as when he sniffed her feet, though. The two of them, Mimi and Oscar, have this first date, and after the restaurant, they're walking through this park, and she says her feet are cold, because she had her shoes off for some odd reason. And so he takes her feet, puts them on his lap, starts massaging them. Okay, that's normal. Leans over, sniffs them. Kind of the first hint of where the movie was going. Because it's not long after that when we have some blood play, and the whole thing was just like a Skinamax movie with a great cast.
Well, it's the weird relationship that's, I guess, it's either the star of this or it's the detraction to this. I haven't quite figured that out yet, actually.
But Oscar and Mimi's relationship was very normal until he went all sadistic on her. Aside from the sex.
True.
The most unusual relationship up to that point was Oscar and Nigel.
Right. They played around at first, and then it went beyond play.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of, I don't know if it's a detractor or if it's the actual feature of the film meant to draw you in with. Because, I don't know. Is it just another asshole, being shitty to a woman?
Right.
Isn't that unique a thing, is it?
No. I think the unique part is the extent that he went to.
Is it, though?
To pretty much psychologically abuse her.
I kept trying to tell myself during this is unusual, this is, something that happens. But, man, it is, though. There's this happens so often.
True.
Especially with someone trying to keep someone close or just to use as a punching bag or whatever. Or to keep control over someone.
Yeah. Incidentally, in later interviews, Emmanuel Seigner admitted that making the film was probably a mistake.
Maybe, yeah.
Now, this is a side point, but I have to wonder how many takes it took to get that straight razor to stick in the floor. Because at one point she takes a straight razor, she throws it at the floor, and it sticks in like a knife.
Yeah, that's not exactly a heavy blade.
No, it would be hard to do that with like a buck knife on a wooden floor, let alone a straight razor.
Good point.
The one thing I kept wondering is why Nigel went along with it, why he was basically playing therapist for Oscar. Until they established that he kind of liked it.
Yeah.
They kind of showed that eventually, that he was really getting drawn in and kind of addicted to it.
And it wasn't just the promise of being able to sleep with Mimi, it was the story itself.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He was definitely titillated by the entire thing. And titillation just seems to be the entire point of the movie in the end, doesn't it?
Pretty much. It was just an excuse to be transgressive. But it was transgressive on one hand, but also incredibly mediocre on the other.
Well, right. It's very... The word I keep coming back to is adolescent, you know?
Yeah.
I can be middle-aged and still get a woman like this wrapped around my finger, or a girl like this wrapped around my finger. And, it's pretty cool to just live in Paris and not have to go back to New York, right, Roman?
Right. Yeah. Incidentally, at one point, Oscar says he's pushing 40. Peter Coyote was about 50 when the movie was made. And Emmanuelle Seigner was about 25. She was about half his age when the movie was being made. I was wondering how he pulled that off until he said he was pushing 40. He did not look like he was pushing 40.
No, not at all. Although, was that like from an earlier time from the present? I don't know.
Well, no, it was at a scene in in their backstory, not on the ship.
Okay.
Where he said he's pushing 40, and I don't imagine much time had taken place before that. Like, that whole backstory probably was just a few years.
Well, there's a few years between when he sent her off.
Oh, that's true.
It's just utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe he would have logically been, pushing 40 at that point in the story. He just didn't look it because they didn't bother with age makeup or, anything of that nature.
Polanski himself was in just a little over 60 at this point.
Right.
And if we remember, he'd been married to for a couple of years at this point. 3 years, I think.
Uh-huh.
And she was 25, 22 when they got married. 40 years older.
Uh-huh. Now, side note, there was a character who showed up in a couple of scenes who looked exactly like a character from Night at the Roxbury.
Oh, yeah. Had to be Italian, of course, right?
The Saturday Night Live sketch where the three guys go to the club, What Is Love plays throughout it. The more recent What Is Love, not the Howard Jones song. But he's got the blazer and the turtleneck and the chains outside of it.
This was pre-Night at the Roxbury, though, wasn't it?
This was probably before... Well, was it before that sketch? Was that an 80s or a 90s sketch?
That was a 90s thing.
That was a 90s sketch? Yeah, because Chris Kattan was
Ferrell and Chris Kattan?
Right. So this was probably before that. I wonder if they borrowed the costume from this movie.
Because, of course, the most popular being, the one with Jim Carrey, which
right.
much later. Because this is almost Duck Factory Jim Carrey.
That's a good point.
It's living
color, yeah. You're right. That costume was so identical to what ended up in the sketch, they had to have borrowed it.
Huh. That was one shiny outfit, though.
Yeah.
Which honestly was just almost another Wild and Crazy Guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the trilogy.
Yeah. Well,
that was last trilogy.
Mm-hmm. The sketch wasn't anything groundbreaking. It was just the costume that kind of caught my attention.
Yeah.
Now, I have to wonder how he got off of a plane by faking a medical emergency.
I thought maybe he was trying to imply that he was smuggling drugs or something. I don't know.
Possibly. Because he was trying to get his bag checked or something. And then he grabs his side and keels over. And I'm thinking, okay, they're finally going to explain how he ended up in the wheelchair. Next thing, they show him standing in a hallway while watching the plane take off perfectly fine.
I was kind of hoping that he was faking the wheelchair thing.
Uh-huh.
That was just, something to
gain sympathy, yeah.
And to just lull Nigel into this false sense of security.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of fakes, there was a nice head fake with the car accident. Because I was wondering, again, how he ended up in the chair. He gets hit by a bus. I'm thinking, okay, that's it. That just breaks his femur.
And what actually caused...
Well, apparently, she shows up at the hospital.
Right.
And decides she's going to get a little revenge. she takes him off the bed. He basically falls flat on his back from a bed in the hospital. I could see that damaging his legs some more. It's not going to paralyze him.
Yeah.
He landed flat on his back. That's not going to do any serious damage.
Yeah, that was a real what the fuck moment, because it was just like...
In my younger years, I used crutches and braces. I have fallen straight on my ass from a standing position onto concrete, and it didn't damage anything. Hurt like hell, didn't damage anything.
And I mean, I've fallen from ice, which, I mean, that's speed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very fast and hard fall when you're slipping on ice.
Yeah, didn't damage anything. Hurt like hell, didn't damage anything. He had a cast on his leg and some pegs and whatnot. It might have fucked up his leg a bit more. It's not going to paralyze him.
That's why I was still hoping that he was faking it in the end, because that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, even with her, even towards that whole crazy relationship they'd had after he's in the chair.
Right.
Which, that you could kind of see more than what he was doing for so long. Like, after a while, you would have to get bored or actually have some sympathy and just be done with it. At least I would think. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Played that a long time. She basically started taking care of him after he ended up in the chair. And it was basically a chance to get payback. She was torturing him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went on a really long time. You'd think she would just get tired or decide, okay, I'm done with you. I've tortured you enough. But she kept going to the point where they ended up on this cruise together somehow.
Right. It's just the devotion to the plan of shittiness that both of them can carry just makes you kind of go, wait, why?
Well, like a lot of this movie, it didn't make a lot of sense. Like the New Year's Eve scene, it just got way too chaotic for no apparent reason.
I was expecting to see Tim Curry in drag at the New Year's Eve scene.
Yeah.
It's just like, am I watching like this Rocky Horror thing?
Uh-huh. I will say, having the songs actually be cover versions was a nice touch.
Yeah.
Because it was this big party, and, there was a band playing, and we hear these popular songs, Slave to Love, Never Can Say Goodbye, My Cherie Amour, but they were all cover versions, which is what you'd hear at the party. They didn't go with the, original versions, which was nice.
They had the band.
But still, a lot of movies would have gone with the studio versions of the songs and just tried to pass it off as the band. I have to say, this is probably the best performance I've seen from Hugh Grant.
I mean, I don't know. I've seen, movies I've enjoyed him in.
Maybe I haven't seen enough of his work. I'm used to him as the usual kind of foppish thing.
I thought it was pretty much the same performance he gave a year later in Sirens.
Oh.
Except...
Kinda, yeah.
I guess he was a bit stuffier in that role.
I don't know if there was quite the emotional range in that one that there was in this.
Provided more of a contrast to everything that was going on there.
I forgot about Sirens.
How could you forget about it?
I gotta look that movie up again. It's been a while.
But no, he was a bit more easily seduced here than in Sirens. But it was still I'm the mark, I'm the Rube, walking down the midway here.
Right. I think this one gave him a little more emotional range, a little more chance to show off in that sense. He didn't really lose his shit in Sirens, as I recall.
Well, he got more flustered by it. He was more difficult to seduce in Sirens.
Yeah.
It took a young Elle Macpherson.
Yeah. And of course, they set up Chekhov's gun in the second act, which was unusual. Isn't it supposed to be the first act?
Well, the rule is if you introduce a gun in the first act, it has to go off.
Mm-hmm.
So they did it later. Because
they introduced it in the second act and used it in the third. I had a feeling one of them was going to die. I didn't think both of them would.
Again, it just didn't make any sense. You probably should have announced a spoiler there.
Is this going to end up on the rec list?
No, it's not.
the way I see it is, if there's a chance at the rec list, I'll be careful about spoilers. Otherwise, no.
But you know what, though? Maybe it is better to have the spoiler going in, because at the end, it's just a really what? It's
Right.
It's just so, it's good that you brought it up, because it was just too over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It was just too melodramatic. Oh, woe is me!
Right.
We're the star-crossed lovers that should have crossed, but now I'm going to end it all for both of us.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I kind of expected him to do it when she gave him the gun. Well, didn't expect it because there's no movie after that, but it would have made sense.
How was he telling the story?
Yeah. There would have been no movie at that point, but it would have made sense if he did it at that time.
What's it that how it really should have ended?
Right, exactly.
Looking in the lightsaber.
Much more mercifully about, a half hour earlier without the whole boat story.
Yeah, it was the way to take a really interesting story and just suck a lot of the interest out of it.
Yeah.
But instead of just showing us the fucking story, to tell it to us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, just a last bit of trivia explaining the title. The film is known in France as Lune de Fiel, a pun on the French phrase Lune de Miel, meaning honeymoon. So as opposed to honeymoon, bitter moon.
It's just like the movie Ready to Wear. I mean, the French translations, they just don't work.
Oh yeah, but that's actually a fashion term.
Well, the French title was more of a play about, the clothes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, was it pun? Okay, Pret-a-Porter isn't just mean ready to wear.
I believe there was a pun to it in the original language, and the same here, and it just sounds stupid in English.
Yeah. On to sequels and remakes.
Oh, yeah, on to sequels and remakes. Although,
please no.
The computer, I thought he was going to play Global Thermal Nuclear.
Oh yeah. He had this computer that he had to use periodically, and I guess it was period correct. There was a green screen, kind of like yellowish, greenish letters. I don't know why he had to use it to call the hospital.
Right. I was expecting Matthew Broderick to play tic-tac-toe on it. But I was pretty well versed in computers back then. And, I don't think that's how they really work.
He had a modem, so maybe he had to dial that to call out. I'm not sure.
Unless that was a Mac from the day. Wasn't familiar with, that period of Mac.
Well, yeah, neither was I, come to think of it. I had used some Macs in the 80s. I don't know about the 90s.
I was bouncing back and forth between DOS's and, Commodore 64, of course.
I don't think I actually used any computers at that period in the early 90s. No.
It was quite a time.
Mm.
But sequels and remakes.
Sequels and remakes. Yeah, please no.
No, please no. Red.
Yeah, exactly.
Red.
On to brains. It was interesting, I guess, in a way. It was kind of compelling in a bizarre, kind of painful way. I'm going to go 3.
I was going to say, no, sir. I didn't like it. But it does evoke an emotional response.
Yeah.
So I'll give it that, definitely. And I think
confusion,
a lot
horror.
A lot of the acting is
fair. Yeah.
I think for the most part good. I think Peter Coyote's a little
arch,
a little hammy. I don't know. He was lost from like a 1940s detective story.
Hugh Grant was solid. Christian Scott Thomas was solid, if underused.
Yeah, underused, definitely.
Emmanuel Seigné did her best.
Yeah, with the weird whatever subtext Polanski was giving.
Yeah.
I'm giving it a 3 as well.
All right, and what have we learned?
I've learned that I'm very happy that the BDSM trilogy is over.
And I learned that pigs don't talk.
And I actually had that as my learned before you suggested we turn it into a quadrilogy.
Yeah, before we started recording, I asked if we should do quills next week to turn this into a quadrilogy, because I don't think we've ever done a quadrilogy.
Oh man, I may have even rated this higher if we hadn't done this 3 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
Because before coming into this, I was even just like, are we still really on this?
Well, at least it wasn't as heavily featured in this one. It was just like one or two scenes.
No, and it was just kind of, like I said, for titillation more than anything else.
Yeah. All right, so until next time, when we'll be reviewing 1984. This is our John Hurt trilogy. Or tribute, I should say. Got trilogies in the brain.
No more trilogies.
No. This is our John Hurt tribute. A little late, but we were kind of sidetracked by this trilogy, kind of impromptu trilogy and an impromptu two-parter. We've only actually done one movie that we were planning to do so far this year.
Yeah, we're waylaid? I don't know.
We did have up through mid-March planned. Now I think we're probably into May.
Oh, who knows?
Yeah.
And next week, 1984, that's going to get political, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Just to fair warn everybody.
Yeah. I don't think we can avoid it.
Yeah.
Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy this show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You'll also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review, up through, I have no idea what the number is at this point, but I'm pretty sure it's Beastmaster.
Yeah, we should do Beastmaster.
We will eventually in May sometime. You'll also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. And, of course, the recommendations list. I figured, Peter Coyote, Polanski's done some good stuff. It had a good chance. And then I watched about 5 minutes of it.
Yeah, that needed a good half hour edited out.
Yeah. Well, not just that. From go, I knew this was not going to be recklisted.
And then the trauma ending was nice, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Of course, you can email us zombietakeout@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1 or for the alphanumerically challenged.
You can go piss on yourself.
414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.
There you are.
That was it. The spell was broken at last.
Oh, jolly good thing too, if you ask me.
Pretty much all vacuum cleaner shows, which means that they both sucked and blowed. So I decided to try some more and then fell on you guys, and I guess it happened to be one of those very rare times when you actually did horror, but there were like 2 or 3 shows in a row that were horror. It kind of got me hooked. So when you did the Mickey Mouse Club or whatever you guys did, I can't remember all the great shows you've done. I was hooked, and it didn't matter that you weren't talking strictly horror.